Okay. Wednesday edition of the After Show. Got Wink and Justice with you. Wink over here on the East Coast.
And Justice over here on the west coast of the contiguous United States of America. It is Wednesday's Child is full of all Wednesdays. Wow. All sorts of stuff happening out there. Sorry about the little delay at the top. Weather gets in the way sometimes. What can you say? Hey, Wink, how you doing?
Not bad, not bad. It is 10 degrees out there today. It's a little on the nippy side. Reminder to get in the chat. Just go to nutrootsradio.com. Scroll down the bottom of the page, and on the right-hand side of the bottom of the page, there is a link to the chat. So click that. Join us there.
And, of course, since I make a passing reference to the Donate Contribute button to the leftish of the chat room link, but we're actually making quite serious entreaty now. We are in need of upgrading software and equipment. And so thank you for your generosity in helping us, because together we are Resistance Radio.
Yes.
All right. Well, here along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, it is currently 49 degrees. We're going to go up to about 54, a little bit cooler than yesterday. A chance of showers. Winds will be out of the south-southwest at 5 to 10 miles an hour. And looks like rain pretty much for the next several days or longer. Yeah. So we're in spring. I have to go out and do a little bit of trimming on the plum tree since it's weighted down with all sorts of blossoms and hanging a bit too low than I want, where it's hanging low. So it'll be easy. I just a 8-foot ladder and I'm good. But hey, well, let's see. We had a Gorsuch hearing yesterday, and we'll talk a bit about that with Angie from Washington State, Angela Marx, on the last half. What else? We've got a kind of a Russian theme at the top half, except for, oh, man. It's only Democrats that do voter fraud. That's why we have to have all these voter suppression things, because, all those, especially Democrats who are of color.
Oh, yeah.
They're the worst,
Indeed.
And so we have these state houses passing these draconian laws, suppressing the vote because, of all this massive voter fraud. Well, we got a voter fraud story today, and it's what you think it is. Not what they say it is. It's what you think it is. Yes, indeed. Wow. Looks like, I don't know, fun times. Tillerson apparently didn't want to do the job of Secretary of State, and his wife told him he had to. So I hate this term, but does that not make him a cuck? I don't know. I mean, for all these manly men that the GOP have, I don't know. I don't consider somebody like a Trey Gowdy to be at the pinnacle of evolutionary superiority. Let's just put it that way. I don't know. They talk about it all the time as being part of the race of people that without them, our society would be nothing but a bunch of protozoa eating each other. Thank God for the white man. And then you look at him and you go, wow, looks like the protozoa ate only part of that genetic material and not all of it. How'd that get through? And you wonder. And then the next thing you know, they're voting Republican, and that answers all your questions about what it is to live in this world that we call, well, today's new go-go society. All right. We might have been blaring there a bit. I guess we finally got our levels a bit better. So let me bring down the master here. All right. Seems silent on the other end. Wink may have his mic muted. And presumably we are still broadcasting live and 5x5. Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm looking with yeah.
That's fine. I'm sorry, buddy. No, I just noticed that we were starting to go up pretty high. So just visually on the levels here. So I'm pulling down where, okay, I think we're good now. Okay. Well, David did have a recorded live show today. That was great. because as much as I love the reprise shows, especially from last year, it's so depressing. Hearing like how many delegates, Hillary was going to get, and then some stuff about Bernie and what about Trump? What an idiot that guy is. Why is he even there? Is it for comic relief? And it's just depressing, because everybody, David in particular, kind of saw what was going on, but no one still believed it, right?
No,
Yikes!
including me.
I remember there was an argument even amongst our staff at the time, extended staff, that just by mere mention of Trump's name meant that we were part of the problem, and so we shouldn't be doing that. And we did actually kind of not do Trump news for a while, just out of, I don't know, I was just wondering. But it didn't stop. I mean, you couldn't do the news without Trump being involved. Because it not only dominated, it was actually important, especially when revelations came out. Things like, the guy had a HUD lawsuit drawn against he and his father, for racism, that kind of stuff. How can you ignore that? Well, these are the issues that we are attending to today, and I should get on it because we do have Angie Marx at the last half, so let's do that. Okay, the former Colorado Republican Party chair, I love this, is charged with forgery and voter fraud in the 2016 election. Oh, yeah, voted for Trump, forged a name, mailed it in. See, that's the thing. Apparently, they project so much, Wink. They have been doing this for so long, they think that we're part of it too. It's just astounding to me. Well, ex-Trump campaign chair Paul Manafort hatched a 2005 plan to push pro-Putin propaganda in the U.S. media. That's why when I hear stories, especially from our side, oh, this Russian link is just overblown. There's nothing there. I don't think anything's going to come of it. And yet we have an FBI investigation. We have like a counterinsurgency investigation. It's just, and then it's really disregarding every single bit of fact that's been going on. I mean, do we disregard that Pussy Riot was thrown in a gulag for almost 2 years? Do we just disregard that? Do we disregard all of the deaths, all of the injuries, poisonings, coincidences? Do we also deny the Russian mobsters? And during David's show today, he ran down the numbers. I don't think you're aware of this, Wink, but the amount of Russian mobsters that own Trump properties, and David was just citing Florida.
Right.
19% of the properties, like these resorts, condo resorts, 19% are owned by Russian mobsters. So let's just disregard that. I don't know. So Manafort pushing pro-Putin propaganda. When I hear stories like that is just nothing, wouldn't that be part of the pro-Putin propaganda? So why should we fall for it? I mean, we can be, I guess, questioning, of course. We don't want to go too overboard. And I agree that laptop in New Hampshire that was mistaken for, being hacked and running the power grid when it turned out just to be a personal PC that had some malware on it. We have to be wary of going overboard and making sure that, we're not assigning more to something than is there. But when we find out that Trump Tower was indeed wiretapped and surveilled from 2013 because of Russian mobsters, I don't think that story diminishes because there was a mistake about a PC, personal computer, laptop in New Hampshire that had malware on it. Because doesn't that fall into the propaganda? We should be wary of that. So, as we sum up for the top half, a Russian lawyer who is a witness in a massive Russian U.S. money laundering scheme just coincidentally plunges from a fourth-story window. Just coincidentally. You know, they've been having too many coincidental heart attacks recently, so they got to mix it up.
Yeah.
And they do.
Yeah.
Well, all that. And we've got, of course, Angie Marx for the last half. And we're going to discuss Neil Gorsuch, Al Franken, absurdity, and the plain meaning rule. Yeah, a legal term for you. All that plus the Connect Unite Act, Daily Coast Community Calendar, and more on the after show with that ever so fine fellow over there on the East Coast with his East Coastal elitism. You can just tell, even though it's so subtle. His name is Wink. And this guy back over here on the West Coast with my coastal elitism. And that's anywhere in the world because that's the kind of guy I am. And my name is Justice. And we do this 5 days a week for an hour-ish in this specific and particular, and some might say peculiar, tear in the fabric of space-time because who loves you, baby? Okay, I better get on it. No more time for, and one more thing. You know, like in Columbo. You know, it's funny because in many ways, sure, I like Columbo, but I wasn't really watching a lot of TV then.
Right.
So this first story is by the great T-Bog. The former chair of the Colorado Republican Party has been charged with forgery and voter fraud for forging and using his wife's mail-in ballot from last year's election. Oh, honey, I voted for you. Thanks, dear. Stephen Curtis served as chairman of the state GOP from 97 to 99. Okay, so he was a chairman. Okay. Was initially charged February 1st with one count of forgery of a public record, a fifth-degree felony, and an elections mail-in ballot offense, a misdemeanor. He appeared in court yesterday morning. According to the criminal complaint, Curtis tampered with a 2016 general election mail-in ballot, signing his wife's name, which led to the forgery charge. Curtis, I love this part, currently works as a radio talk show host. I'm not running for office, folks. I know too much.
Yeah.
About myself, actually, and is notable for telling local station KLZ 560 before last year's election, quote, "It seems to be, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but virtually every case of voter fraud I can remember in my lifetime was committed by Democrats," end quote. If convicted, Curtis faces a maximum of between 1 and 3 years in jail on the forgery charge, and only 18 months and a $5,000 fine on the misdemeanor fraud charge. Okay. See, he's not black. They throw the black people, you know, whether they're voting Republican or whatever, for these. Actually, in some cases, it's a mistake. This guy actually did it willfully. I'm just saying, I've seen black voters who have voted erroneously, and they're in jail for 5 years. I think it's a 6-year punishable fine. Okay. Paul Manafort, you know, he was only there for a little bit. Except what's funny is that Tweety interviewed him at the convention. He was only there for a little while. Hardly any influence. And this is by Brad Reed out of Raw Story. Former Trump campaign chair Paul Manafort pitched an ambitious plan to help Russia influence American politics throughout the last decade. Now, wouldn't that be like just a little bit before Obama came in? Yes, indeed it would. The AP reports that Manafort, in 2005, proposed in a confidential strategy plan that he would influence politics, business dealings, and news coverage inside the United States, Europe, and former Soviet republics to benefit the Putin government, even as Russia relations under Republican President George W. Bush grew worse. Well, why not? We are now of the belief that this model can greatly benefit the Putin government if employed at the correct levels with the appropriate commitment to success, Manafort wrote in a 2005 memo. This is nothing more than a hostile business takeover to him, wink.
Right. That's all.
Manafort made his pitch to Oleg Deripaska, a Russian aluminum magnate. Yeah. Wow, that's great. Who is a close ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin? Coincidentally, of course. Manafort eventually signed a contract with Deripaska that paid him an annual value of $10 million for each year. And the two men maintained a business relationship through at least 2009. In a statement to the EAP, Manafort admitted working for Deripaska, but denied that his work undermined American security interests. And I can tell how he's thinking. You know, there's the Obama thing, which is obviously un-American. And then there's our business interests, which are totally aligned with everything America is. And so even if we bribe people, commit crimes and all that stuff, it's in America's interest. So we're the Americans, and, you know, Obama and his weird, you know, like regulatory constitutional authority. What's that? White House press secretary Sean Spicer tried to downplay Manafort's role in the Trump campaign, and he claimed that Manafort played, quote, a very limited part in the campaign, end quote, despite being the official campaign chairman for over 4 months. And got him to the convention. Got him the nomination. Changed a plank in the Republican platform that benefited the Ukraine and the Russians. Good work for $10 million a year, Wink. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Massive Russian-U.S. laundry scheme. This is out of BuzzFeed by My Case. And the case, USA versus Trebizond, was being spearheaded by now fired U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara. Coincidentally. A Russian lawyer who was a witness in a U.S. federal court case connected to the largest money laundering scheme in Russian history was hospitalized after plunging 4 stories on Tuesday in Moscow. There are conflicting reports about what happened to the lawyer, Nikolai Gorokov. His spokesman, William Browder, who was an alleged victim in the money laundering scheme, says he was thrown from the 4th floor of his apartment building. Russian media says he fell while he and workers were trying to lift a jacuzzi into his apartment. Conveniently and coincidentally. Well, I don't know. Sounds to me like he was in hot water with Putin and they had to do something. And they did. Okay, his name is redacted in all the documents, Browder told BuzzFeed regarding court filings in the U.S. Southern District. Redacted, Wink. And yet, didn't we have some Russian hacking going on? Where they were looking in business files? You know, I should mention also, votes weren't flipped in voting machines. But you know what was stolen, Wink, in these down ticket races? Yeah, voting rolls. Voting rolls. And I guess it's an easy process to change a letter here and a number there, and then that person can't vote. Just saying.
Like 100,000 in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So this guy,
ridiculous,
this fellow's name is redacted because of the danger that could befall him if found out. And you know what's going on right now in this investigation? The Russians have inside help. Could it be Roger Stone? Could it be Flynn? Could it be Trump himself? Could it be the whole gang? Well, you know, they're I don't know. I was going to use the term moral fortitude, but that's exactly the wrong term to be using because there is no moral fortitude there whatsoever. But let's just say there's some conflicted morality involved in this. When the end game of winning in power is much more important than, shall we say, America's interests.
Oh, yeah.
The case, USA versus Trebizond, is on the brink of going to trial in Manhattan, right in the middle of a massive shakeup of federal prosecutors by President Trump, coincidentally. You know, there's all these coincidences. Coincidentally, that they've got like about 10 people involved directly with Russians and Russian businesses. Just coincidentally that just 19% of the occupancies in Florida of Trump properties are by Russian mobsters. Just coincidentally. Just coincidentally that we have Russian ambassadors of the end keeling over from heart attacks. Just coincidentally, we have other people keeling over from heart attacks. Just coincidentally that we have a Russian journalist and also a guy who was a Putin critic and ran for office, a best friend of a guy who ran for office, who just coincidentally got shot in the back, steps from the Kremlin. And that his friend just coincidentally got poisoned for the second time. Just coincidentally. Just coincidentally that the U.S. attorney in the Manhattan district is just coincidentally fired. A lot of coincidences. Trevisan has filed a last chance motion to get the case thrown out before trial, but if the judge rules against them, it's scheduled to be presented by a New York City jury on May 15th. It's unclear when Trump, whose presidential campaign is facing close scrutiny for possible ties to Russia, will appoint Bharara's successor. Those involved in the case believe that will stay on track, and experts agree that the case should proceed as scheduled despite Bharara's ousting. I don't see the U.S. government withdrawing from this case, Will Pomerantz, deputy director of the Wilson Center's Kennan Institute and a leading expert on Russian commercial and constitutional law, told BuzzFeed News. It's unlikely, with a case on the eve of going to trial, is one that they're going to back away from. And if they did, it would obviously send a signal. Wouldn't it? Now, I'm thinking that there are some judges out there that really don't want to be, aligned with the executive on this, shall we say. But isn't it another coincidence? Michael Murkowski is no longer involved in the Trevisan case and did not respond to a request for a comment. Of course, Michael Murkowski is here, shall we say, prominent New York City defense attorney Mark Murkowski, the son of former U.S. Attorney General Murkowski, who at one point was defending Trevisan, is on the short list to succeed Bharara. Isn't that coincidental? Interesting. So he's no longer involved in the Trevisan defense and did not respond to requests for comment. Trevisan's current firm, Quinn Emanuel, said that it could not comment on the record, and the DOJ said it could not comment because the case is ongoing, of course. Then the article actually goes on and gives a big rundown. How did Russian gangsters steal nearly $250 million in taxpayer dollars? According to the DOJ, they literally stole companies. In 2007, investigators say an organization of Russian mobsters, corrupt officials, and law enforcement orchestrated a raid on 3 companies held by the Hermitage Fund, which at one time was the largest Western investor in Russia. Cops associated with the would-be fraudsters stormed the offices of the companies and seized key assets. Then they re-registered the companies, putting themselves in charge. After they took control, the thieves ginned up sham lawsuits resulting in rulings against the companies totaling a massive $973 million. But the payoff came later when these stolen companies filed for tax returns to the tune of $230 million, which was immediately approved by tax officials in cahoots with the fraudsters. Once he caught wind of what happened, the founder of Hermitage, William Browder, who is also the spokesman of the guy that got coincidentally thrown out of a 4-story window, was hospitalized, fought back by enlisting a group of accountants and lawyers to suss out who was behind the scheme. One attorney, Sergei Majinsky, was particularly successful by digging through bank records. Majinsky was able to track the $230 million, which happened to be the exact amount that Hermitage paid in taxes in 2006, to bank accounts opened with obscure banks controlled by Russian mobsters. And that brought the attention of the Russian Interior Minister in 2008. Instead of going after the culprits, the government jailed Majinsky. A year later, he died in prison at age 37. And it goes on, and on, and on, and the DOJ is on the case. All right, let's get to our Jim Hightower break. We'll come back, go through the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Codes community calendar, and then discuss Supreme Court nominee Gorsuch with Angie Marx. All right, you're listening to the After Show with Wink and Justice on Netroots Radio, and we will be right back.
cars, but also to heal America's social divide. How? By reminding TV audiences about everyone's desire to achieve the American dream, as symbolized, of course, by the status symbol of owning a Cadillac. Seriously? Yes. The ad begins with a stark declaration. We are a nation divided. That's what they tell us. Then Cadillac's ad suddenly shifts gears, gliding into an uplifting, touchy-feely montage of all in this together inclusiveness. We carry each other forward, the narrator purrs, no matter who we are or what we believe. Mustering all of the modesty you would expect from a Cadillac executive, the corporation's marketing head explains that we didn't want to enter the political debate, we wanted to transcend it. Ah, yes, and how better to go beyond rancorous political disharmony than to drive away from it in a luxury car. This is Jim Hightower saying the corporate honchos tried out this message on an unbiased audience of Texas Cadillac dealers. And guess what? They loved it. One dealer gushed that the ad identifies the ultra-expensive car with, quote, unity, optimism, courage. Seriously? Yes, apparently Cadillac thinks the right and left, the rich and poor, can all become e pluribus unum again by unifying around America's new egalitarian slogan, a $100,000 car in every garage.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Okay, we're back.
And indeed, we are back, and thank you for sticking with us. This is the After Show with Wink and Justice. Justice here along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the West Coast. Wink is in upstate New York, 21 on the East Coast. Angie Marx is in a safe and secure location not too far from the Columbia River in Washington on the West Coast. And our crew are the ethereal creatures who reside in the cloud. And that's like all coasts.
Yeah.
Every coast.
And
it's because of their intergalactic technical abilities, which are very advanced. It allows Netroots Radio, and thus by extension the After Show, to span the globe, the solar system, out past the Oort cloud, out past that bridge of stars, even out past our own ability to perceive. And beyond that, too. Oh, my God, hyperbole be thy name. Okay, today's Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast Community Calendar is facilitated by Forrester Bob. And am I right on that? Let me make sure. I'm sorry. Yes, Forrester Bob. And he opens his diary today with a memorial of sorts, or a memorable essay on small venue concerts that he had attended. And have you ever attended small venue concerts? And when I would go to concerts, that's where I would probably go. Though I was at the time usually too busy playing at concerts that I didn't get to go see a lot of them, though we did encourage each other to go see our friends play and stuff, which we did. But then we ended up playing too. So it's like you're playing at the concert, and how much are you really enjoying it? Not like you are out there with your big lighters and stuff.
Yeah.
But, I played at Freight and Salvage in Berkeley, a fairly good-sized small venue. Sweetwater in Mill Valley. Gorky's down in L.A. Played there a few times when I was doing more punk rock music. The other venues is when I was doing more solo shows or playing with Jimmy McAllister, who was formerly of Rabbit Choir. He and I played a lot of shows together. And played music festivals, though I don't know, what is small venue? I guess maybe up to 1,000, 2,000. Some of the music festivals were that or a bit larger in terms of the audience. So I don't know how much of a small venue that would be. But that was kind of fun, you know. Okay, so new groups forming. Just a reminder, Wisconsin Cossacks are starting their Daily Coast group. So Cosmail Chris the Colodem to become part of that group because, hey, Scott Walker's got to go. Not only that, I guess there's some like rich right-wing Looney Tune types that are funding him too. Maybe they should go. I think so. Remember that Navajo also maintains the event list, so Cosmail her if you have an event or a group or any news that you'd like to be publicized on the diary and also here on Netrace Radio. The Colorado community, led by Left Candidate and Colorado Tim, have their Caffeinating Liberally meetup every fourth Saturday of every month. And this fourth Saturday is March 25th, coming up. And so they meet at the Common Grounds Coffee House, 44th and Vallejo in Denver from 9 a.m. to noonish at the table by the piano. So get a hold of Left Candidate and Colorado Tim to let them know that you're showing up. They don't, I've noticed, and they've mentioned this before, they don't really put a list of who's showing up because, I guess that's a part of the country you don't really want people to know. So there you go. New York Cossacks are going to be meeting up on Sunday, April 23rd at Spitzer's Corner. Why? Because Navajo will be in town. And that's at 101 Rivington Street. That's April 23rd, so mark your calendars. It's in the Ludlow District at high noon. Cosmail Navajo, because her work never ends. And there's actually a score of people showing up. Thinking Fella and Ojibwa are putting together the third Epic Glacier National Park meetup held on June 30th through July 2nd. Cosmail them about that. And also there's an important diary for important planning details that you'll need to familiarize yourself with. Also scores of people. We will continue to send healing, positive energy to Bill in Portland, Maine, because he's been under the weather, but he's been putting up some cheers and jeers diaries, so that's a good sign.
Yes.
The Netroots Nation Daily Co's annual Cheers and Jeers dinner this year will be held in Atlanta, by the way, Wednesday, August 9th at 5:30 p.m. Cosmale, Navajo, of course. The location will be determined by how many people show up. And if you're too late, they won't even have fourth-rate karaoke in Atlanta for you. So don't hesitate. That is your Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast community calendar for the 22nd. The 22nd of March. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. Well, now we're in the last half. And, Angie, it's 62 days. And I know we're going to talk about Gorsuch. But this all is connected. And but 62 days and just the amount of, I don't know, scandal, I don't know what to call it, scandal is just enormous. And yet we're in the midst of a hearing for a lifetime appointed Supreme Court justice when Obama couldn't get even like an interview with Republican leadership for Merrick Garland. And what was that excuse? Because he had like only a little more than a year left in his term.
No, they did what they always do. They take something and make it something that it's not. Years and years ago, Joe Biden, we like Uncle Joe, but he was a gaffe master, right? So at one point years ago, he said something about, in the last year of a presidency, maybe we shouldn't be letting them appoint new justices or something, something offhand. And they glommed onto that and made it into, well, this is the policy now. In the last year, presidents can't nominate new Supreme Court justices, which is, of course, like most Republican stuff, nonsense created out of whole cloth.
But can I don't know how privy. I was just ancillary to that discussion. I'm sorry, Angie. I don't know how privy you are to this. But the concept of lessening the amount of justices on the Supreme Court isn't just something that came out of thin air. That's actually a goal that's been espoused by the Federalist Society and the Heritage Foundation, mostly by the Federalist Society since they are a group of lawyers and judges and whatnot, brought together for a particular task. Brought together for a particular task.
It was since FDR tried to put about 6 more justices on the court in the middle of the last century because he thought that with the growing population, I think they had 9 at that point already, but he thought we needed more, right? And that was when we had maybe 120 million people in this country. Today we have 320 million. I think the court should be increased. I don't think 9 justices is enough. For one thing, the caseload of cases, the cases that they turn down, it can't just be because they don't find them having merit to be heard.
They don't have time.
Part of it has to be they don't have time to hear them. And look at the average age of our Supreme Court justices is like about 72 or something now. It's really high, really high.
Well, I don't know. I say they're a spry 72.
Well, no offense, like I'm saying, to, and obviously still got all their marbles, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but, time does wear down people. And I don't know, this whole deal is just crazy making. And did you watch Senator Franken yesterday?
Well, I've seen clips of him. I was doing other things, unfortunately, and I was able to spend more time. I was able to spend more time with Comey and Rogers the day before, but I did draw up an article from Think Progress by Laurel Raymond, where they talk where Franken brought up the I guess called the frozen trucker case and the plain meaning rule. And
he pulled out his little handbook to read it to Gorsuch.
I just love that, and to a possible Supreme Court justice, telling him what the plain meaning rule was and how it's been misconstrued.
I had it
was masterful.
I had C-SPAN on all day yesterday on that hearing. I watched over 7 hours of it. I watched lots and lots and lots of it. And of all of the questioners, Gorsuch was stoic and calm and collected, but Senator Franken, he got to him. You could see he was visibly agitated when Franken was badgering him about this case in particular, when he told him he was absurd. It was a thing of beauty. I urge anyone who hasn't seen that footage to go watch it.
So let me just remind folks, or let folks know what that particular citation was about. It's about Alphonse Madden, a truck driver for Trans Am. The brakes on Madden's trailer locked up on a sub-zero January night, and he called for help from Trans Am's road service. They told him to wait, and he did for 2 hours, despite the heat in his truck cab had been broken. So then he fell asleep, and he was woken by a phone call. He had a numb torso and couldn't feel his feet. So if you fall asleep in 14 below zero weather, you can freeze to death. You can die, Franken explained in retelling the case. Madden called back Trans Am's road service, who told him to hang in there, and he waited 30 more minutes. Then he unhitched his broken trailer and drove off seeking help. About 15 minutes later, when the repair truck finally arrived, Madden drove back to meet it, and then the guy was fired for leaving his load by the side of the road. And apparently Gorsuch, in what he considered to be the plain meaning rule, was that, the guy should have been fired because the statute reads that he can't leave his load. But it also, as Franken pointed out, it also means that you can't drag your load in an unsafe manner down the road either. So he had a choice of dragging the load in an unsafe and illegal manner or freezing to death. And Gorsuch sided, well, he should have just froze to death and waited there until help came.
Even more so, Franken said that his choice was to endanger other people on the road, or possibly freeze to death, or do the rational, reasonable, same thing and unhitch that trailer and drive to safety.
Right.
And that's when he told Gorsuch his decision there was absurd.
Yep. Well, I did see clips of that, and Gorsuch was squirming then. Otherwise, he was right out of central casting.
Yeah, he obviously prepared for that hearing, without a doubt. And he he's been on the bench for 10 years, so he's well versed in public speaking and minding his words carefully. But Franken unnerved him. It was apparent. And I'm all with Chuck Schumer, who called late last night to have the vote for Gorsuch postponed until this FBI investigation into possible influence of our election and possible collusion by the Trump campaign, including possibly our sitting president, is concluded. And I agree with him. There's no way we should be putting a nominee by a president under an FBI investigation clouded by possible treason on the court. No way.
That's my point at the top, was that their excuse for not letting Merrick Garland get even a sit down with anybody, let alone a hearing, was that Obama had a little more than a year left in his term. And now we have a sitting president 62 days in under FBI investigation, also a counterinsurgency investigation, by the way, and all the others. But we alluded a bit to this last week, Angie, that this is part of the Republican GOP shock doctrine plan. This is just another catastrophe that they can push through their agenda. They did it with Katrina. They obviously did it with 9/11. I mean, that's when Naomi Klein brought up the idea of the shock doctrine and the idea of disaster capitalism. This is disaster capitalism at its quintessence.
I urge you to watch on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter for a about a 22-second montage, which MSNBC ran last night during the Crusades, Hollywood Crusade shows, with Donald Trump, what's his crazy, Kellyanne Conway, Senator Rubio, and a whole slew of other Republicans saying on camera that a possible presidential candidate under FBI investigation cannot possibly be elected president.
Yep.
Doesn't
And there
have
was
any
only
business
one of
being
those.
president.
There was only one presidential candidate under FBI investigation at that time, and it was Donald Trump.
And it was Donald Trump, exactly. And it's not just that, but they were talking about somebody who was just running for president, how it made them unfit to even run for the office. Now we've got a sitting president who has been under investigation since last July. And, for me, that part, when I learned how long ago that investigation opened, and then I thought back to Mr. Comey, the FBI director, like a week before the election, getting on television and telling everybody that there were some more crazy emails possibly about Hillary Clinton in the air out there, when they had been actually investigating Trump for collusion possibly with the Russians to influence the election, and he didn't mention that. I'm telling you, that's the biggest news story that they're not really covering.
Well,
Comey's doing his job now, but when he did that man, I believe he violated the Hatch Act 6 ways from Sunday, and he should be thrown out of that office, and he should be prosecuted.
Of course, I don't mean to be a devil's advocate on this, but I've been trying to put meaning and order to that behavior also by Comey. And I was wondering, it's law enforcement protocol in some ways to let a crime continue so they can, and allow it to go to its fruition so that they can charge them with the actual crime. If you do it before, then it's only suspicion of, up to or conspiracy to. And so I was wondering, well, are they going to let Trump just take over and then bust him because this was the quid pro quo for the whole thing? I mean, it just seems too outlandish that Comey would be thinking like this. And then I also heard.
Oh, I'm sorry, but under normal circumstances, when you're talking about criminal activities by, just somebody out there, that's one thing. But this was the election of the president.
I know.
He had a duty. He swore an oath to support, defend, and protect the Constitution when he took that office. And by
this wasn't the illegal taking of a business. It was
by him saying that about Hillary Clinton and being silent about Donald Trump, I'm telling you, I am firmly in the camp believing that he violated the Hatch Act by unduly influencing a federal election by his actions. It's inconceivable that there's any rational reason he could proffer the American community about why he spoke publicly about her the week before the election and kept his trap closed about Donald Trump and Russia. But it's unbelievable. The whole thing's unbelievable. But we elected a reality TV president, and now we're having a reality TV presidency. That's what's happening.
And usually in these instances, I mean, because I've been, like in media, also in theater and film and entertainment, is that the folks that they call talent, the people who are in front of the camera, usually aren't the brightest bulbs. It's the people behind the camera, the advisors, the producers, right? So in our new politics, in many ways, sometimes, especially, when you have a president, it seems almost like so media driven now. I mean, people have to have a certain look. I mean, look at Gorsuch. I mean, I'm not kidding when he comes out of Central Casting. This is what the Heritage Foundation of the Federalist Society has done for decades. They've groomed people from a very early age and then tracked them sort of like in the Soviet model about where they would go. Some people are better as behind the camera. Some people are better in front of it. Some people are better running for office. Some people are better getting people to run for office. And this is how
they've been at it since John Kennedy beat Richard Nixon by looking better on TV in those debates. 1960, FYI, for all of you younger viewers.
And so in this instance, we had, I can't even call him an actor. I don't know, but regardless, we're seeing an actor of sorts trying to be president, but he was never a thespian. He never took method acting to really delve deep into the character or what it takes. What's the motivation for a president to behave a certain way? I mean, he's not being an actor even. And this was frightening about it. And then, but what's even more insidious and to me evil, and I hate the term evil, okay, is that there are people who are taking advantage of that right now in a strategic manner to gain petty power and but without any regard to the long-term ramifications of their actions. I mean,
well, I'll tell you, for me, it looks like the Republican Party, when they went ahead and accepted Trump as their guy over a year and a half ago, they built a house of cards, and that house of cards is getting ready to topple. That's the actual facts on the ground there. It's scary because it's not just Trump. It's a whole bunch of actors in that scenario, including Reince Priebus. I can never say his name.
Yeah.
The former RNC
right.
chair, who's now his chief of staff. There are tentacles out into the ether there. I mean, it's going to make Watergate. It's going to make Republicans long for the era of Watergate, is what I think. In another year, they're going to be wishing it was Watergate.
Well, I also see now the fractiousness in the Republican Party is really manifested out of this healthcare bill, and where Trump seemingly, like on certain news channels, when they reported that he went and pretty much threatened, a bunch of GOP Congress people if they didn't like toe the line on this, he would come after them. And then they talked to the Freedom Caucus people. Then they talked to the Freedom Caucus people, and like Brat, who I totally hate, but he's counting just in his Freedom Caucus almost 30 Congress critters there, and it's not even counting the moderates who are in more liberal districts who, so Trump certainly doesn't have the numbers, and yet there's still a compliant part of the media that is pushing this narrative that also seems to me bordering on evil.
Well, I think that was misreported by the media about Trump threatening them about losing their offices. I read the entire quote from him. I think that was Trump actually, for the first time that I can tell while he was the sitting president, being truthful. What he said was, if you don't help us get this passed, you're going to be losing seats in 2018. He was warning them that if they didn't do what Republicans are well known for doing, which is get in lockstep, like a cabal about 80 years ago in a nation in Europe, that their seats would be at risk. And he's wrong, because if they pass that thing, their seats will be gone. Their seats are at risk if they vote for that thing. That's what's happening.
I can't remember what Democratic persona said this, but I read this morning. It's like a Damocles sword. If you go against Trump, you'll be primaried, but if you vote for the bill, you'll lose in the general. So which is it?
Yes. For Republicans, it's a lose-lose. Yay!
I know. Somehow, I don't know. We Democrats have a tendency to snatch defeat right out of the jaws of victory. I mean, this is when we should. Fortunately, I kind of hope that with a Perez, because he's actually been out there being sort of like the barking dog. It looks like maybe there might be a cohesive strategy in which to take advantage of this disarray. And
I think Indivisible is helping with that.
But let me ask your opinion real quick, because we've only got a couple of minutes left here. Are we going to be able to filibuster? Will we be able to delay this hearing? Is this just going to go on? I hear there could be a vote as soon, well, at least in committee, like as Thursday, along with the health care vote.
Yeah, here's the thing. They're going to keep pounding the message on TV and radio everywhere they can about how great this new plan is and how it's going to get passed and blah, 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 blah. But in the background, if you read The Hill and you watch the right Twitter feeds, you'll see that they are terrified that they're going to lose that vote. It's the first big vote. Their big rising star, Paul Ryan, who, you know, the GOP wants in the White House in a couple more years,
right,
and has been wanting him in the White House for about 6 years now. It's his shining star. He's pinned to this thing like a little bug on a corkboard at this point. And they are not going to bring it to a vote if they don't get enough whip count assurance that it's going to pass. Mark my words, they're saying that they're going to hold a vote this Thursday. It will not happen.
right.
And before we go,
Yes.
since we're almost out of time, I want to give a shout out to my candidate, Peter Harrison, who's
Yes.
running for Congress in the 3rd Congressional District in Washington State. Please go check out our website's just kind of in the build it phase, but it's votepeterharrison.com, HARRISON. He's everybody knows about those check your internet speed things all over the internet where you can find out how fast your internet speed is.
Right.
When he worked for Microsoft, he invented that. It paid for
Oh.
his very nice house and helped him retire early so he could go out and do good works for the last few years here.
Well, good.
So if you live around here, check us out and help me support Peter and replace our unrepentant Trump sycophant representative, Jamie Herrera Butler. Send her home for good next November.
Yes. Actually, I think we have a great possibility in areas that, you know, that might not have been the case. So, you know, we should take definite advantage of that. Well, we should, when your candidate's ready, we should have him on and find out where his jib lay, as they would say. And also next week. Also next week, I think that maybe we might want to talk about Pence. You know, if by the grace of God, well, Trump is removed from office, we still have Pence, and yet I believe that Pence is as deeply entwined in this as
here's the scarier thought. If Pence goes down two at the same time, we get Ryan.
I know. See, that's
number
isn't
3.
that right? I know.
Right? And after that, it's Mitch McConnell. That fun never ends.
I know. Well, they play chess.
Yeah.
And all we're playing is darts, I guess. I don't know. All right, Angie, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks.
Okay, guys. Have a great day.
All right. You too. All right, folks. Well, this is Wednesday, so that means that tonight is Jibber Your Jabber with Wink. That's a 2-hour opportunity for live call-in radio. Begins at 9 p.m. on the West Coast. That's midnight it's midnight on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And so we will be also listening to Beth Orton's She Cries Your Name in the interim before Hartman comes up about 6 minutes after the hour. Stay listening to Netroots Radio 24/7, 365. And why? Because who loves you, baby? Okay, Wink, I will see you on the other side.
All right. Well,